Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades.
The coronavirus pandemic began in 2019, spreading quickly and ultimately leading to most of the world closing down their borders and imposing restrictions on things such as travel, leisure and education. Many flights were grounded, causing major disruption for travellers, and a mixture of rules that varied from country to country led to major disruption for the travel industry. In this documentary, I will focus on the journey that the travel industry has undergone, discovering what it looked like before, during and after the coronavirus pandemic. So, what exactly did the industry look like before the pandemic? In April 2019, there was an estimated 3.2 million visits to the UK from overseas, with an estimated £1.8 billion being spent by these people. Globally, the travel and tourism industry was thriving, having accounted for 7% of global trade in 2019.
I want to update you on the latest steps we're taking to fight the disease and what you can do to help.
COVID-19.
A woman who was infected in China
Huge national effort.
has become the 9th case in the UK.
Desperately worried about their health, about their economic well-being.
Suffered its highest number of deaths in one day.
No health service in the world could possibly cope.
And 40,000 people have been infected worldwide.
The levels of stress are going to be huge.
These figures plummeted during 2020, as there was a 73% decrease in overseas residents visiting the UK, and it continued to be relatively low until recently.
At a time of crisis, no one is an island. No one is self-made.
Not only did the COVID-19 pandemic impact large travel companies such as TUI and Virgin Holidays, but it also damaged smaller local travel agents. I sat down with Lee Hunt from Deben Travel in Woodbridge to find out more about his business and how it was impacted by the pandemic.
So Deben Travel, back to 2011 really. At that time I'd taken a few years out of the travel industry and I was working in London, getting the train to London every day from Ipswich, and having done that for a few years it was just getting a bit monotonous, and I missed the travel industry. I missed the buzz and excitement of the travel industry. But I knew I wanted to do my own thing, so one night at home I just printed off a load of letters and put them through doors of shops in Woodbridge that I thought would be a good size for a travel agent's. That was in the September. The person that had the lease on this current unit that we're in now called me and said, if you want to buy the lease off me, you can. And so, yeah, that was the September, and then we opened January 2012. I'm the owner of Deben Travel and I'm the sole director, and I'm here pretty much every day as well. So unlike in big companies where you may have a finance department and a marketing and IT and everything you can think of really, in the end that comes down to me. It's my sole responsibility. COVID obviously was a real tough time, and from the start really in January 2020 we were hearing of COVID, the early signs of COVID through Asia, and then in Italy, actually a ski resort in Italy. So initially the first impact that we had was the ski season. Quite quickly all ski holidays were cancelled, and so we had to obviously get in contact with our customers that had ski holidays booked to let them know that they could no longer travel and to refund them. I would say the part of COVID that impacted us most was the uncertainty around what the government was going to do next, because at one stage it was a traffic light system, so countries were graded red, amber, green, and if the country was red then you couldn't go, if it was green then you could.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to outline plans for a new traffic light system relating to foreign travel. Countries will be assessed on their vaccine rollouts and infection numbers. Travellers will also be required to take a number of tests.
So one day a country may be green and would book someone to go there, and then the next day it changed to red. So then we'd have to call that customer and say, I'm sorry, the rules have now changed, we now have to cancel your holiday. One particular customer scenario really springs to mind, and that's some customers that right at the start of the pandemic, it was in late January, they were on a touring holiday in Vietnam, and their guide basically announced that the borders of Vietnam were due to close, and if you didn't leave the country, pretty much now you're going to be staying for a considerable amount of time. But then the guy disappeared because he needed to get back home to wherever he was from. So our customers were simply just left in Ho Chi Minh City.
Well, this pandemic and the lockdowns that have followed were always going to take an incredible toll on the travel and tourism sector.
We're in debt. We need help from the government.
After 16 months stopped in its tracks, the travel industry came to Westminster to demand the government loosen restrictions in time for summer.
Lee, alongside some of his colleagues, took part in a protest in London about how the COVID-19 restrictions were impacting travel businesses.
Every time they mention travel, it's aviation and about all this money they've given to aviation, and travel agents have not seen any of it. And we are like the engines of the business. We're putting the seats on the planes and we need the help.
Flying has been reduced by 80% all around the world. There are some 17,000 passenger jets parked, mothballed all around at airports all over the world. So look, this is an industry that has absolutely been clobbered by this virus. And as I said, you can certainly expect to see more job cuts from more airlines to come.
In June 2021, a series of protests took place around the country. Amongst the protesters were independent travel businesses like Deben Travel, as well as pilots and cabin crew from bigger companies. Some stood outside Downing Street holding up signs, whilst others took to empty runways to share their message of protest for the government's newly proposed traffic light system for travel.
They're ramping up pressure on the government to make it easier for people to travel abroad for international holidays without quarantining when they come home.
Finally, I asked him about any positive changes that his business has seen, as well as how they managed to bounce back after the pandemic.
I think there have been some positives. I think certainly, if I think about it from a business perspective, first of all, during COVID, we needed to do everything that we could to maximise the little amount of money we had. And so that involved looking at who provides our marketing material, who does our printing, telephone bills, electricity companies. So there was a real good cost-cutting exercise that took place, and they are still in place now, which is great, because obviously if that hadn't have happened as a business, we probably would never have looked at those business factors and how to save money as a business. I think the other good thing is that I think travel agents are once again being seen as worthwhile. I think for so many years people questioned, what do travel agents do? Are travel agents needed? Well, actually, we are here to give recommendations and to help people find the perfect holiday. Generally, no more expensive than what it would be booking it yourself. But also, you've got the advantage that we are here for that peace of mind when it comes to the financial protection. Well, if we look back to last year, so the year of 2023, it was pretty much the first full year where we had no COVID restrictions whatsoever.
But because of the efforts we've made as a country over the past 2 years, we can now deal with it in a very different way, moving from government restrictions to personal responsibility.
In 2022 as a year, people were still a little apprehensive about travelling. So if we look back to last year, it was the most successful year that Deben Travel have had in our 12-year history. For the first time ever, we booked more than £4 million worth of holidays, and that's never happened before. It has just changed the way some people think about travel, in that they know that if they book with a trusted high street agent, that if something does happen, we'll look after them, whether it be before they go or when they're away, and certainly from a financial perspective as well. If anything happens, they can be rest assured that they will get a refund. So it has increased the number of people that book through high street agents, particularly independent agents such as ourselves. So hopefully that will continue, and I just hope that people don't have short memories and in a couple of years' time start trying to do it all themselves again.
So, while they caused major disruption to everyday life, the restrictions on leisure, travel and education arguably helped stop the spread and contributed to the ending of the COVID-19 pandemic.
COVID will not suddenly disappear. So those who would wait for a total end to this war before lifting the remaining regulations would be restricting the liberties of the British people for a long time to come. This government does not believe that that is right or necessary. Restrictions pose a heavy toll on our economy, our society, our mental well-being, and on the life chances of our children. And we do not need to pay that cost any longer.